viewer box has appeared with no issues, Brent. Just rolled right out like it's supposed to.
We are theoretically live.
Where is Brian? Where is he? Trush, where are you?
No viewers yet.
It's always my worst fear.
We have one viewer, 2 viewers, 3 viewers. Marty.
Bam.
On
yes.
Instagram.
Yes. Instagram. IG. Ooh. IG the OG.
You didn't know we were doing this, Marty. I'm surprising you with this.
Oh, wait. Yeah, Instagram's the ones we don't get to use.
We do now.
Well, we do now. Look at you guys. Oh, Brent, you make my heart so happy. Insta is my favoritist social media platform, although they're starting to irritate me lately. You can't trust Meta with anything, honestly.
Yeah, it's true. Okay, so Lindsay has confirmed that we are getting comments from Instagram. They are flowing through.
Insta, okay.
So that's good. Burr has comments coming in on Facebook.
All right.
We have YouTube comments coming in.
Man.
And yeah, so we're going.
Just killing it. Man, I love it. All right. Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to February's live stream Q&A. This is our special Chiasm edition. This feels like an annual rhythm. We get Brian David. I don't know somebody who loves chiasms more. Look at the shirt he's wearing. Brian, show the people your shirt. From Aleph Beta, I love chiasms, love I. That's just
it's great. A chiasm.
It's a chiasm.
It's a chiasm. See?
So I love it. So we're gonna dive into all. I've been saving up a year's worth of chiasm emails that came in. What about this chiasm? Am I seeing something here? Am I crazy? That's what we're gonna do today. So we're all over the place. We got people on YouTube. We got people on Facebook. We got people on Twitter/X. We got people on Instagram now.
I think we have more people on Instagram than we do anywhere else.
Of course we do, because Instagram is the bestagram. So that's how I feel about that. But
they're just so surprised. They're like, "You're streaming on Instagram? What's going on here?"
No kidding. I'm gonna turn my light on here, see how long that lasts. We get 2 hours out of that battery. We'll find out. Hey, everybody, the next live stream is set for March on a Wednesday night, March 11th. At our typical weekday time, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific time, Wednesday, March 11th. It'll be me. The month after that, spoiler alert, it's going to be Elle Grover Fricks is going to be on in April. She's going to take all the questions we've been stockpiling for Elle. And there's a little list, so that's coming. But enough about that. We're here to talk about chiasms. I'm going to be watching some comments tonight. I usually don't do that. I'm watching some chiasms. Brent will be watching some chiasms. Listen to me. I'll be watching some comments. Brent will be watching a little bit of everything. Brent's got a direct traffic today. He's got 3 of us. Brian, you have like a little, I love how you set the stage for chiasm work. And if I'm looking at our notes here, you have a little bit of intro to get us warmed up before we even dive in. Tell us a little bit about, well, first of all, Brian David, everybody, he loves chiasms. He's a friend of BEMA, has been for years. He runs like incredible BEMA groups. He reads NT Wright. He does all this stuff, but he loves chiasms more than anybody that I know. He believes in chiasms. He believes that chiasms are there where some of us have so little faith in the chiasm. So we've talked about Brian before. He's been on an episode. Brent, what episode was he on? The end of our verse by verse through John.
Yeah, which was that? That's going to be like 3 something.
306.
306.
306. Boom.
I was going to say Brian should know his own episode. That's good.
Yeah. So you can check out that episode. But you can also find him on about a year ago. We did a live stream just like this. So we're getting broken in. We know what to do. But Brian, set us up. Tell us about what we need to know before we even take our first question here. Tell us about chiasms and what you do.
Yeah. So first of all, I want to say I have throat issues, so I apologize in advance if I sound weird or my voice drops or whatever. So it's an ongoing thing for now. But number one, I always do what I call my caveat emptors, which is buyer beware, um, which is I'm a simple sojourner who loves to engage the text, but as always, do your own research. Your mileage may vary, and it's probably a chiasm. Okay? Um, so chiasms, why even think about it? The idea of literary design and techniques matter in the text. I believe, and as do a lot of others. I got hooked by Rabs, got introduced by Marty in the beginning, and then Foreman, and then Tim Mackey at the Bible Project, and N.T. Wright, and lots of other folks like those guys that are all talking about literary structure. If you haven't seen Bible Project's whole series on how to read the Bible, where you get introduced to all the literary structures and types and themes that our authors used. And one of those, and prevalently, IMHO, is chiasm. I was looking earlier today, and you can find it. I said, what other types of literature uses chiasm? And it's Homer, it's Virgil, it's the Aeneid, it's Iliad, it's all the ancient writers. John F. Kennedy. It's not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. That's a chiasm. It's there everywhere, in fact. So I got introduced, got hooked, and said, well, if they're in there, then maybe we should pay attention, because maybe they're in there for a reason. And the more I engaged, the more I learned, the more I thought that, well, it can influence the message. The chiasm's not just there to say, here's a chiasm. It's likely influencing the message the author's trying to get across. So, having said that, I have a little process that I've kind of developed over the years. If folks are trying to figure out how to do it, or how to get started, or that's kind of the why. Kind of the how is, I'll look at a text a bunch of times. I'll often take it out, get rid of chapters and verses, and just lay the text on a document. And just in English, if you read it a few times, you'll see where words or ideas start to match up. And then that, will get me started. I'll work outside in. If I can see things that match up, I check the original languages when I do that, not just in English, because English authors will do all kinds of funny things with stuff. And so over time, if I can find then a reasonable kind of center, then I'll look at that and start thinking, okay, there's something here. I'll go back and look at it 2 or 3 times. And then for me, the way chiasms work is usually there's bookends that get you started, make connections, and they work towards a center. And the center isn't the only message, but it's likely supposed to be a primary part of the message, if you will. And if that's true, and the authors of Genesis, Rabs, we've been through season 1 and the reboot, and we talked almost every session. We were talking about chiasms in Genesis, like almost every session, right? They're everywhere. I'm gonna say they're all over Exodus too. There's a huge one in Exodus that lots of folks know about. And they keep going from there. So if they're there and they influence the message, then maybe we ought to learn to pay attention. So that's my thing. If I think I find a center, I want the center to match up with, what that section of text is talking about, what that scroll might be talking about, what the whole message of the big arc of the story is talking about. All those things need to line up for me, and then I'll think, okay, maybe there's something here. Any thoughts on that, Marty?
I think it sounds great. I like your process. I think it mirrors, no pun intended. It mirrors in a lot of ways some of my own experiences of how I engage chiasms. I'm probably not looking for them nearly as often as I could be, or maybe even should be, but I'll like, it's that multiple passes. And I'm like, wow, man, wait a minute. I've heard that. I heard that before. I heard that again. Oh goodness. It looks like there's stuff here. And yeah, I love that. And I always have a little Brian David sitting on my shoulder that whispers in my ear aggressively, it's probably a chiasm. And so I've started looking back again and again, because I do think there's just so much repetition there. So all right, we're going to transition to some questions here. We had some people in the comments asking
stage setting, live questions that we just, I want to get them out of the way real quick.
Yeah. Somebody asked if we can ask non-chiasm questions or only chiasm questions. You can ask whatever you want. Brent Billings is going to watch the comments. I'm going to watch the comments. We may throw some stuff in there. And we're going to try to use our time and try to focus, especially with Brian being with us here today, on chiasm questions. But hey, who knows what kind of time we're going to have. And Dylan asked questions about AI. I see that there's already some stuff in our conversation right around the mid live stream break. I see. And when it comes to AI and chiasms, I probably should have thought about that more, Dylan. So I don't even know who added that to the document, if that's Brian or Brent, because it wasn't me. But we'll talk more about that in the middle of the live stream tonight, because that is a juicy little question.
Yeah, that was not so much I want to answer this, but just to say, Dylan, hang on. That's coming.
Yeah. I will at least give some comment to that. I'll be interested to know if Brian, I haven't even thought about it. There are some things I'm just an old man at. I'm just a late adopter. And ChatGPT and AI is 100% one of those things for me. Some things I'm an early adopter, so who knows, but I'll be real interested to hear if Brian has anything on that. But our first question comes from Matt, who says, I made this chart and I'm not sure what to do with the information I have compiled. I feel like I have a puzzle in front of me, but can't see what the picture. I love that expression too, Matt. Like, I've gotten a bunch of stuff out and I feel like there's something here, but I can't quite. I'm backing up, I'm leaning in, and I can't quite see what the big picture is. And so he sent, I don't know what you plan on sharing your screen with. He sent a Google Doc. And are you planning on sharing that, Brian, so that people can see it?
I could. Yeah, I could.
All right. Let's do it. How about you share that so that people can see what we're looking at, and you can make comment on it. How about that?
Okay. Let's see. Are you good? Am I good to go, Brent? Share screen. Here we go. I think I got it. Is everybody getting that?
Yeah. Yep.
Can we see it?
We can. I'm not sure if you can hear any of us, Brian, because we're not on the screen, but
I can hear you.
Marty, you will be on as a guest, because all the guests are. I mute both of you at the same time. So if you want to mute yourself, you can do that. And as far as our viewers on Instagram who are getting this for the first time, this is not necessarily the best Q&A to start with in this regard. Probably going to be very difficult to read this, but if you have a chance to pull this up on a larger screen, some of the text is going to be easier to see than others, but we'll try to give you, you'll see the broad brush strokes of what's going on here anyway.
Awesome. So we can see the spreadsheet. We can see that. Brian, tell us what you're seeing as you look at this.
Yeah, so I first of all, I would say that this is beautiful work. Well done, Matt. I do think, these are basically parallels for me between kind of what Peter and the Jerusalem folks go through, and then what Paul, as he heads out into the nations, into the Gentile world, goes through. And they do line up, but there's a lot of parallelisms there. Just Peter and Paul reflecting the gospel of Messiah and kingdom, going both to Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and out to the Gentiles, just like it says in Acts. Um, the cool thing for me is that this is then followed by Acts chapter 15, which is basically saying the kingdom's for everybody, the nations are in, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, to exactly summarize that up. And so the story starts in Jerusalem, it goes out to the nations. Paul brings it to the nations, and then where does Paul end up? Back in Jerusalem, right? So not saying that Acts itself is chiastic, but I wouldn't count it out with chapter
Nope.
15 in the middle, because this is one of the big, right, of the whole Younger Testament.
Yep.
This
Yep.
big idea of this is Jew and Gentile, this is kingdom for everyone, right?
Yep.
So we see Peter spelling it out for the powers that be at the beginning of Acts, and then Paul spelling it out for the powers that be at the end of Acts, with chapter 15 in the center. So not
Yeah.
even knowing if, Matt, you were going for all of Acts, but these parallelisms, which is another form, it may not be a chiastic. I actually put a note on here that if this is chiastic, then chapter 9 and Paul getting his call and saying we're going to the Gentiles is right in the center of that. So,
Ooh.
which,
Yeah.
which fits, right?
Yeah, yeah, I do love that. And I'd also say, Matt, this is lots of scholars have talked about these two ultimate movements at the beginning. There are like two halves of Acts, and the first half is split up between this Jewish movement and a Gentile movement. And then what happens on the backside of those things colliding, just like Brian described. So what you've done here is you've actually shown the parallels. They might not be chiastic as far as inverted with a center, but you've shown that the author there is very deliberately, we've got a very similar, a parallel rhythm, and I really like that. And I see in your notes, I have wondered this before, Brian. You say potentially we could have you say it's a relatively well known, like a Luke Acts that spans the two volumes chiasm. Is that what I'm reading there?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. Yeah. We can try that out in our AI test.
Oh, okay. Oh, I like that. Dylan's probably chomping at the bit over there hearing that.
Yeah,
All
yeah,
right. Well
yeah.
then,
No,
if you're good,
yeah,
I'm going to move on to the
absolutely.
next one, right, Brian? So,
Let's do
good
it.
job, Matt. I love that. I do love that, and thanks for sharing that doc. We'll go from Brian to Ryan. Ryan says, "Is the Matthew 10 discourse?" Oh yes, sending them out. The Matthew 10 where Jesus sends out his disciples. Is that a chiasm? Verse 5 through 15, and then verses 40 through 42 seem to align thematically, as well as verses 16 through 23 and 34 through 39. So that would definitely give you a chiastic flow there. That would then leave 24 through 33 as the center point. Brian, what did you think about this when you looked at it?
I think we got a lot of awesome folks out there finding good stuff. That's what I think. So, yeah, this is a great job, Ryan. Like, I did not have chapter 10 as a chiasm before this, but I like the stuff that you brought up. You were looking closely, and I think there's something there. There are thematic linkages for sure. I'm trying to be a little more rigid, I guess, about words in the original languages lining up as well, which I didn't see a lot of, other than kind of the welcoming of the families and those kind of things. But the folks, there are a couple other sites. One's called Chiasmus Exchange. One's called Literary Structure something. I can share those, but you can just Google them. And the folks at Chiasm Exchange do have chapter 10 as a chiasm. What's weird about this one for me is they have a similar center to what you had, Ryan. 2631 around who to fear as they're out. Right? Don't fear the one who can destroy the body, but fear the one who can destroy you. spiritually or whatever. Okay. So definitely could be. And that's, great engagement, I think. It's probably not, if I graded them, I'd probably give it like a B minus as for me, as far as is this a real chiasm and what I would want it to, how I'd want it to work there. But I think there's definitely something there.
Yeah. I was just looking at it. And it's so funny to hear Brian talk about that. I used to always talk to Brian about, I was so rigid about, I'm looking, I was really impacted by, I got all chiasm crazy. And then I got nervous that I was seeing them where I shouldn't see them. And I was reading Kenneth Bailey. So I really kind of like slapped my hand, like, no. I have to have like unique usages of unique words with enough of them that I can be sure of the chiasm. And then Brian, I was talking to Brian about it one day, and you were like, okay, but Foreman plays thematically and conceptually with chiasms all the time. And he's a trained, Orthodox rabbi. And I was like, oh yeah, no, that's totally right. And so I've been paying attention to how Foreman does that. And so I'm a little bit more giddy sometimes to go. And then when I'm in Matthew, I'm always so irritated because I'm like, well, Matthew was originally in Hebrew, and that's how I feel about that. So I can't do my original and feel confident about my word linkages, in my opinion. But I think a B minus. And when Brian says that, Ryan, he's not talking about a B minus on your work, but a B minus of possibility on chiasm. What's the likelihood? What's the scale? And I'd probably put it in about the same. I could be easily convinced. I'm on my way to going, I think there's definitely something going on here. I don't love that center at the moment, but if I pulled it apart, I might figure out why that lands the way that it does.
Yeah, that's really good. The other thing for this one that's me is that it's, for me, like Matthew is, certainly Remez happy. And for me, I feel like this, along with other sections, Remez's Micah beautifully. There's all kind of connections from Lost Sheep of Israel, Spirit will speak, I will assemble the lame and afflicted, make them strong, remnant of Jacob, friend, father, mother, son. Don't be afraid. Nations, leaders will fear you. All that stuff is right. All that stuff is in Micah.
Oh, yeah.
That is, and for me, that's a huge connection. And then the last thing I would say is I have this playing a potential role because, as Marty said, Matthew potentially in Hebrew, but I also think Matthew is chiastic as a whole. So this plays a role. It might connect to, because we just saw some teaching kingdom, we saw some doing kingdom, and then we saw Jesus sending folks out to do kingdom. And on the back end of Matthew, we have some more teaching, we have some more doing, and then we have 24 and 25, and basically you're supposed to be the ones doing kingdom until the time returns. So that's how those things line up in the big potential chiasm of Matthew for me as well.
Yeah, I love that. All right, I'm going to keep this thing moving. I'm going to jump down to Tony's email. Tony sent an email, and he said he's looking at Genesis 19, and this is going to be the story after. This is going to be the Sodom and Gomorrah story. They're headed out of Sodom, Lot's wife. And he's seeing bookends in Genesis 19, verses 17 on one end and 26 on the other. So he sees 17, they brought them out and said, escape for your life, do not look back. And on 26, but Lot's wife behind him looked back. She became a pillar of salt. He sees the B connection, the next layer in, as Lot says he's found favor in their sight. Him and his family alive would be saved. On the other side, God rains down judgment. So essentially the execution of that piece. The C layer, getting closer to the center. Lot wants to escape to a little place. And then Zoar, which the town meaning means insignificant. Okay, I could see that. So if he runs this through, the center of that becomes 1921, full of the language of Abram's bargain for Sodom. Behold your requests, not overthrow the town. Yeah, essentially the God making good on the deal that he made with Avram and Lot. What do you think when you look at this one?
Beautiful. I had already almost the exact same one.
Beautiful.
This is more great work. I have kind of a center in 21 because of the town in 20 needing to run to, and then 22 says flee there quickly. Nothing can happen until I get there. You know what I mean? So I have maybe a pretty, for me, it's a pretty clean center in 21, but I think this is a awesome job finding the chiasm itself. But I also love, Tony, what you did with connecting this hyperlink, as Mackie would say at the Bible Project, or parallel remez to Noah and the flood story, and the parallel you made to the decreation recreation theme, saying, oh, do we have another decreation recreation going on here in S&G, similar to what we had in the flood story? So that's a beautiful connection for me. You made a connection listening to L's podcast, I think, texting us.
Yes.
Ari, a witness to the mercy Yah was prepared to give, had Abe's intercession continued to the full measure. Abe's intercession back in chapter 18. So for me, I have not much to add to this. There's more. Keep digging, wrestling. Well done. And then you went and wrote a beautiful story parable in that email that, I don't know, maybe you want to share that on Slack or someplace sometime. It was beautiful. So amen.
Yeah.
Great job.
Yeah. It's very cool, Tony. I love that when Brian just comes in and is like, I had the same thing before you even said. When somebody else sees something that is nothing is more like, okay, not only am I not crazy, but just like the kind of confirmation that the way I'm engaging the literary stuff. So good work there, Tony. Love that.
This is my little chiasm generator, and it's green right in the center, right where you had it before.
Look at that.
Yeah, I had the same one before we even started. So
I love that. Love it. All right, Andrew, he said, is there a chiasm of Jacob deceiving Isaac with a goat and the goat stew, and a garment, Esau's clothes, on one end, Jacob being deceived about Joseph's with a goat, blood, and a garment with a fancy coat? And I'll start on this one, Brian, because Foreman's got all kinds of fun little juicy tidbits on this. Goats and coats. Foreman's got a big teaching. There's at least parallelism here. Foreman's a big believer that I'm pretty sure at some point, I've been around Foreman for years and years, and he does change his position sometimes. But I feel like Foreman's like Genesis is a chiasm, Exodus is a chiasm, Leviticus is a chiasm, Numbers is a chiasm, Deuteronomy is a chiasm. They all form a larger chiasm. He doesn't necessarily say it all the time, but I've heard him teach on that enough that when I start seeing these parallels in Genesis, I start to get a little giddy and say, at the very least, these stories are talking to one another. And Foreman has started using the language of intertextuality. So even when, like, if you're foiled on a chiasm, don't throw the whole thing out. Keep working on it, because you may find the chiasm, but in the midst of it, use it. Imagine there's like a window, an intertextuality window, where the stories are obviously connected, and so they're talking to each other. I can see this story through the window looking this way, and I can learn something going the other way from this story looking back the other way. There's a window that we can connect those stories. But Brian, what do you see when you look at this and the Jacob story?
Almost exactly as you. I'd say great job again, Andrew, seeing the connections, the hyperlinks, if you will, between those two stories. We got goats and coats for sure, and there's a whole Foreman has great teaching on it, but so do other people. Like this is a common Hebraic
Yep.
worldview kind of thing that's going on in the text. For me personally, and I assume you would say that those would be bookends if there was a chiasm there. For me, I don't have those set as bookends or anything like that. If they connect the stories for sure. But if you're asking, are those two episodes in Genesis 27 and 37 possible bookends? I'd say it needs more work. But bottom line, Chiasm Exchange has a chiasm from 25 to 35. Those 10 chapters or so, which looks reasonable, but I'm not a huge fan of their center, as I'm often not. So it's a little weird for me. The work I've done personally so far is I definitely have something going on from chapter 28 to chapter 35, which is basically when Jacob gets told to start walking, leave home, right? Goes, has some episodes in the middle, and then he returns home, right? He leaves home to escape Jacob, right?
Yep.
I mean, escape Esau, I'm sorry, right? Leaves home, then he returns home. He meets Esau on the way home. Mm-hmm. He builds an altar and meets God on both sides of that.
Yep.
Right. And then, so there's going out, seeing God, building an altar, escaping Esau, and then coming back, and he reunites or comes back together with Esau, hears from God, and builds an altar. And it's Bethel's on both sides as well, too. So there's a bunch of connections in that series. And there's two, for me, I call them the Biafwakeo episodes, which is brothers in a field without killing each other.
Okay? Oh, lovely. Yep.
So that's my little acronym, which is a theme that runs throughout Genesis. I think it runs throughout the entire text, right? So there's actually two episodes side by side. There's the Jacob Laban episode, and then there's the Jacob Esau episode, right? And those would make a nice center for something that could be a larger chiasm in that area. So that's what I have so far.
Yep. And I want to say I'm reading like in my mornings right now. I'm probably just 2/3 of the way through Foreman's Numbers Parasha Companion. And I believe I just got done reading Leviticus too. So they all kind of run together. But I believe it's the Numbers one where he starts making parallels to the Joseph narrative and some of these repeated themes. So you're definitely seeing stuff that is talking to each other. And I do think that brothers in a field, I do love that acronym, brothers in a field without killing each other. I was like, what is that going to stand for? I was like, building an altar for, I don't know. So yeah, those stories follow, like, just keep talking back to the Cain and Abel setup in the preface. And I love that. That runs all throughout Genesis, which makes me think that kind of stuff sets up a potential larger chiasm too. I love it. Andrew, you're not crazy. I think lots of people have seen that stuff, and it's great. Lee says, love the podcast. Just got started. Both excited, confused, and if I'm honest, a little unnerved about what all I might learn. I love that, Lee. I love the honesty, but I also love so many of us have been there at different points. Even before Bema was a thing, I was there as my world starts to unravel. So totally get it. But Lee says, I wanted a little bit of clarity and help with chiasms. I just listened to the episode on Noah, I believe episode 4, and I'm having a hard time spotting the logic and numbers within the chapters, because there's a lot of numbers. Within chapters 6, 7, and 8 of Genesis, Lee says, I found a lot of numbers. There's 3, there's 300, there's 50, 30, 1, 2, 2, 717. They just keep going. He says, I can see 7, 7, 40, 150, 150, 40, 7, 7. But how do you come to the conclusion that it's those numbers and not the other numbers? And I know I've answered this a little bit before on other live streams, but I'd love to have, while you're here, Brian, speak to this from your perspective of what you find helpful when you see a lot of things that could be pieces, but what do you do? How do you decide what the pieces are?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, Lee. And but in a way, your question kind of answers it, because you listed like 10 numbers in one set that have no pattern and don't match up really in any way, and then you listed 8 numbers that are beautifully connected. That's 7, 7, 40, 150, 150, 40, 7, 7. So that's one idea, that if, if I just see a bunch of numbers, it doesn't mean anything. But if I see things like numbers, and it doesn't have to be numbers, it could be names, it could be places, it could be like we were talking places and we were talking about Hosea, back last time, Marty, like it could be anything like that. And so it's a great question. Those numbers repeat in a specific order in specific places. But for me, I'm going to look for the other stuff. Like there's a lot of other words, links throughout that story, like kids and covenants and yetzers and destroy and all these other things that also line up. So it's not going to be just the numbers or just one thing, even.
Yep.
Whatever it is, we want to find multiple things, especially like one like this. And if you're interested, the year ago podcast, we went through this one in detail specifically. I don't know if we remember, but this one, because of course, in Brian's heretical universe of better chiasms, the bookends weren't where they should be, and it changes the meaning of the story in some ways. So if you want to go look at that one, you can look at that view. We're actually going to use it when we talk about AI in a minute. I'll show it to you again.
Are you wanting to share your screen right now, Brian? Are you?
I was going to wait until we do the AI thing to show it again. Yeah.
Okay.
But the full discussion, we did a 30-minute discussion on this one.
Yeah.
At the end of last time. Where I went through the whole thing in detail. So go back to the end of 2024 Q&A that we did, and you'll see the whole thing. And
okay, we can find that. We can find that link, and Brent might be able to put that if you're in a platform that supports getting those links. Brent can put that link to that live stream too.
Oh yeah.
Or you can just go find it. But yeah, absolutely, and it's a great point. What I did in that episode, which probably didn't help you, Lee, because your question's excellent. What I was doing at the beginning of that journey, we're only 4 episodes in, and I'm wanting to show people the concept of a chiasm so simply that all I did was highlight the numbers, because numbers they're not conceptual. I don't have to know Hebrew. I don't have to get out my lexicon. I can just see 7, 7, 50, 140. And I love what Brian just said, because the chiasm itself is actually far bigger than just the number references. And what I did in the episode was tried to boil it down and make it so simple that when you start asking a really good question like what you're asking, I didn't necessarily set you up for a ton of success there. But when you keep looking, you'll find more and more stuff. It's almost like the numbers can be that easy to see hook that grabs you, that you realize, oh, I see what's going on there, but am I seeing something or am I crazy? And then you start to dig and you're like, oh, nope, this is actually here. Look at this, look at this, look at this. And those other references that Brian was talking about. So, all right, Allison's got a question. Says, I am almost done with session 2, not to the New Testament yet, but I have a New Testament question. This past school year, I taught middle school Bible. We're in the book of John, which, I mean, John, who loves to use literary devices more than that guy. It was glorious. I can't wait to get to the New Testament with Marty and Brent to see what I was wrong, or during my time of teaching the Gospel of John, laugh out loud. Anyway, while preparing to walk my students through John 21, it's the very end of John, I think I noticed a chiasm and was hoping for some feedback. She says, I see on one end, Peter moves, I'm going to go fish, and the disciples follow. And then on the other end, Peter moves, he jumps off the boat, and the disciples follow. In between that, Peter-led fishing yields to 0 fish. And then on the other side, Jesus-led fishing yields to a multitude of fish, which puts the center for Allison. Jesus intervenes and gives instruction for where to throw the net, where to fish. which raises a question of, if that is the case, why would that be the center? Would love to know if I'm on the right track with this. I love where your head's at, Allison. I'm going to see what Brian has to say about this. He loves him some Gospel of John, if I do say so.
Yeah, we can talk chiasms in John for many moons. No, beautiful job finding this, Allison. I think it's awesome that you made those connections for sure. So I would say, you asked, am I on the right track? Right track. I would say Tove, a good track. Right isn't always the right word for this stuff, though. Okay, and that's for me as well. Like, right is hard. So yeah, I have a chiasm here for sure, as do others. But I have it from verse 1 all the way to verse 14. It's bookended by phaneroo in the Greek, of the Lord appearing, right? Yep. Afterward, Jesus appeared again to his disciples in verse 1 and in 14. This was now the third time Jesus appeared to his disciples. And it uses that Greek phaneroo word, so that lines up words for me. And then I work in the center a lot of the same ways. Like 5 and 6, friends, haven't you any fish? No, throw your net on the right side. You will find someone. They did. And then 8 and 9, their disciples fall in the boat, towing the net full of fish. When they landed, they saw fish and bread. And for me, the center is verse 7, because I think it tracks with John's entire message.
Yeah.
When John said to Peter, or the disciple whom Jesus loved, right? Said to Peter, It is the Lord.
Yeah, okay. So good. Yeah.
And it says that twice. Okay. So for me, because that's John's whole theme is that you may know, right, that he's the Lord and have life. John's whole theme is about Jesus is Messiah, Lord, and thus life. So that fits really well. So I definitely think that's a great job finding something there. It's just, those are the kind of things where we just keep working, keep looking. Maybe there's more. And that's where I would ask the question, as you did, why would that be the center? Why would giving, where to find the fish be the center, as opposed to, hey, it's the Lord, might be a legit center for what John's doing with his entire gospel. That makes sense. So keep up the great work there. And I'm hoping that you're sharing the concept of literary structure and chiasms as an important piece of the biblical mosaic with your middle schoolers, because they're the ones that need to learn it if this is going to go anywhere.
Absolutely. Can you imagine having some of these tools when we were like 14? If we were a Bible nerd, oh gosh, we'd be dangerous.
Or even know we should even be thinking about them. Like,
yeah, exactly. Yep. Beautiful. Yeah, great work, Allison. We love where your head is at. That is fantastic. We got a question from Liz, which somebody, I believe you, Brian, has identified as the center. I don't know if that is word count in our Google Doc. I don't know if that's the date in which it came in.
Yeah, that's the center of there's 13 questions in our Google Doc.
I love it.
That is the center question.
Liz, this is it. This is everything that we're doing tonight funnels to this moment. Liz says, I think I found a chiasm. Leviticus 20, verses 7 through 8. Let me read it. It says, consecrate yourselves and be holy, because I am the Lord your God. Keep my decrees and follow them. I am the Lord that makes you holy. And that was the two. Those are two verses. So I'll say it again. Consecrate yourselves and be holy, because I am the Lord your God. Keep my decrees and follow them. I am the Lord who makes you holy. Totally see what you're doing there. Short, little, compact rhythm. And sometimes these short things are like the JFK quote that Brian used earlier. But Brian, what do you see when you actually have a lot of notes here? You see a little bit going on. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, because rabbit trail for me, this is a perfect one.
I love it.
And it's also just exactly what I've been looking at lately a lot. But yeah, in the Hebrew, you shall kadosh yourselves, and you shall be kadosh, because I am Yahweh. And And then on the back it says, I am Yahweh who kadosh you. So that's the outside. And on the inside, Shamar, which is keep, and Asa creates my statutes and instructions. This is all about the idea of holiness being engaged with who God is and his instructions, because that feeds into a whole big other thing. So,
and you see that in the garden, Brian. That's incredible. I love that. Is that what you're saying here? Is that you see? Sorry, everybody. I'm reading notes that they can't see. But do you see Samar and Asa as references back to the garden narrative?
absolutely, Samar, the whole keep. He put mankind in the garden to keep it. Even when mankind was exited out, he put someone else there to keep it. This garden, and it all feeds into, the tree of life being wisdom, and tree of life and words and instruction, and Torah being the tree of life and wisdom. They all feeds together like this whole big thing. It absolutely connects to the garden. It also connects to what you found for me is we talked earlier about the potential of all of Torah being chiastic, the 5 books of Moses being chiastic.
Yep.
And pretty much everyone has, not everyone, but lots of folks have that chiasm. We'll look at that in our AI discussion as well in a second, or after we do the rapid fire responses or whatever. But for me, this is a piece of a larger, another potential chiastic structure from chapters in Leviticus 18 through 20. Okay.
Yep.
Which puts chapter 19 in the middle. But your little chiasm, this is actually a good thing, because chiasms can be parts of bigger chiasms.
Yeah.
Okay. These things don't stand alone. As Foreman's been using the word, and Mackey's been using it, and lots of folks, this intertextuality idea. You can have chiasm be connected to another chiasm in a larger chiasm. Okay, which I think the garden potentially is, by the way. And that's another conversation, which we may or may not get to tonight. But these create and Asa things definitely connect to the garden. And where will the Israelites soon be on their way to? As they're sitting on the mountain getting the instructions of Leviticus, they will be on their way to the next garden. But I think this is part of a larger chiasm here that is the center of Torah. Chapters 18 through 20. I thought I put this someplace where I could share it. Let me see if I could find that. Yeah. So can I share again?
Yes, you can.
All right. Here we go. Are we getting this?
Yep, we are.
Hopefully you can see that. But from chapters 18 through 20, there is I am Yah. There's another keep, Samar, life. Don't walk like an Egyptian. Okay. And then on the other end, there's going to be another keep. Don't walk like a Canaanite in chapter 20. I am Yah, holy. There's don't, mess around with the gods of Molech, holy keep. And then in chapter 19, which is potentially a center, there is love your fellow neighbor and love your stranger neighbor. Okay. Centered by fruitfulness, which is right out of Genesis 1, and Sabbath, which is right out of Genesis, should be 1, but they actually put it in chapter 2 for some reason.
Sure.
Okay.
Yep.
So this, for me, is this 18 through 20 section is a chiasm that puts basically love your neighbor as being fruitful and restful life, love your, including the stranger, in the center, right?
Yeah.
So this is, and for me, it's the center of Torah. Okay. And you might say, okay, other folks, am I still sharing?
Yeah, you are.
All right, let's do the AI thing while we're here. Is that okay?
Let's just do it. Buckle up, Dylan.
Right.
Here comes the AI.
All right, so I'll come back to this. But I just asked AI, Books of Torah Chiastic. That's like, this is Gemini. You can do it in Copilot or whatever else you want. Okay, so I just typed in Books of Torah Chiastic. That's all I'd put in. And this is what it came
Brian,
back
it
with.
seems like we're not seeing the switch of tabs, so I don't know how you shared
okay,
this
you.
window, but
Okay, thank you.
we're still seeing the document.
Oh, gotcha. How do I unshare?
Probably stop sharing and then reshare the window you want to share.
Stop sharing. There we go. My bad.
Oh,
Thank
hey
you.
guys. I don't know why it defaults to me when this happens.
Because you're the great illustrious Billings.
Now are we getting it?
There we are. Yep, got it.
Okay, so this is Gemini, which you can see the disclaimer down below. Just like Brian, Gemini is AI and can make mistakes. Okay, but
Nice.
yeah, Books of Torah Chiastic. That's all I said, and it just said, just as the story of the flood is chiastic, ring composition. That's another word for chiasm. There's a macro chiasm of the Pentateuch, right? And it puts Genesis, Exodus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Leviticus in the center, holiness and atonement. It breaks that down even further. The internal chiasm of Leviticus puts the Day of Atonement in the center.
Darn right.
Which almost, if I typed in what's the center of the Torah chiasm, most people would say, as does Foreman, I think most people say, it's the Day of Atonement. But according, again, to BCH, which is Brian's heretical, and you have to spell heretical with a CH in Hebrew, okay? Universe of better chiasms, what if sin management isn't the center of Torah or the gospel? Where does that leave us? I'm just asking questions. What if chapter 19 about love your neighbor and fruitfulness and rest, Shabbat, is the center of Torah? Okay? And I'm just asking questions, no answers here. And you might say, you're out your mind, Brian. Everyone else says it's the Day of Atonement. Okay? And I'm going to say, what if three other goats,
Goodness. Oh, goodness.
Right, agree with Brian? Okay. Okay. Three other witnesses to the truth. All right. And the first one is Rabbi Jonathan Sachs.
That's a pretty good one. Pretty good name.
Okay. Yeah. So I have a long quote from him, and he talks about the whole idea of Torah being a chiasm. He talks about the ABCBA, the books, the entire Pentateuch forms a chiasmus. This is Sachs. I'm quoting him. Okay. This leaves, I'm going to quote this part specifically. This is Sachs. This leaves Vayikra, which is Leviticus in Hebrew, the Hebrew name for what we call Leviticus, as the central and therefore the most important book. Not by accident was it the Jewish custom for many centuries to begin teaching Torah to children by starting with Vayikra or Leviticus. At the center of Vayikra itself is the so-called Holiness Code, chapter 19. Okay, because it has on the beginning of chapter 19, be holy for I am holy, and then at the beginning of chapter 20, because chapters and verses were actually there then, it says again, be holy for I am holy, and in the center is love your neighbor, love the stranger, fruitfulness, and Shabbat. Okay, so that's what I'm telling you. So there's goat number one, okay, and it appears in the center of the Holiness Code right there. The second goat right, is this guy named Paul. Okay. He wrote a book, a letter. Okay. He wrote a couple letters actually. And just for instance, okay, in Romans, a letter to some folks in Rome, he wrote chapter 13, verses 8 through 10, which is a chiasm, by the way, those 3 verses. Let no debt remain outstanding except the continuing debt to love one another. Whoever loves others has filled the law full. The commandments, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not murder, sounds a lot like the Sermon on the Mount, you shall not steal, you shall not covet, whatever command there may be, are summed up by this one command: love your neighbor as yourself, right out of Leviticus. Love does no harm to a neighbor, therefore love is the fulfillment of the law. Those 3 verses are chiastic. Okay. And then he wrote a little letter to some folks in Corinth, and he gave it a whole, what we call chapter 13, is about saying, and that Brent and Reed did a great job on the podcast just recently talking about this, right? Chapter 13, all about love. And if love isn't part of it, I'm just a, clanging, worthless noisemaker, right? So it's all about love. And then he wrote another little letter to some folks in Galatia, I want to say, right? And there was, I believe, verse 5:14, for the entire Torah is filled full in keeping this one command: love your neighbor as yourself. He's quoting Leviticus.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Chapter 19, he's quoting. Okay. So that's my second goat. So we got Rabbi Sachs. We got, Pastor Paul, Apostle, Prophet Shaul, right? And then I'll take the third goat as being a Messiah, Jesus himself, right? Who might say something in Matthew in a sermon on a mountain, right? So in everything, do to others what you would have them do to you. This sums up the law and the prophets at the beginning of Matthew, right? And then in 22 at the end of Matthew, because, Matthew's chiastic as well, as we all know. 22, 30, 34 through 37. Teacher, which is the greatest commandment in Torah? Jesus replied, love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength. This is the first and greatest commandment, and the second is like it: love your neighbor as yourself. So there you have it, the 3 goats plus Brian. The center of Torah is actually love, not sin management. Sin management important? Absolutely, but not the center.
All right, you got to stop sharing your screen so I can see your face. I came prepared to argue this point, and how can I, after that mic drop moment, I can't argue with when the 3 goats are Sachs. I was like, okay, I can argue that with a little. And then you're like Paul, and I'm like, all right, that was dirty, and I could already tell where the third one was going. Can't argue with that. And
that was good. That was good. I'm impressed.
I would throw this out to all of our chiasm listener viewers for this episode, this live stream. When you're digging into chiasms, this is the beauty of it, because now Brian and I sit around the fire all night, like in joking love, kind of going back and forth over. And out of this emerges maybe other wisdom. Like, okay, is Day of Atonement Leviticus's center, and potentially this other passage Torah's center? Does all of Torah hinge and hang on this one command? And yet the Leviticus holiness code? Like, could I push back on Sachs and be like, actually, what if Leviticus was not about holiness codes, which is part of what Sachs has seen, but Brian, I feel like, has seen something outside of holiness codes. He's seen a love your neighbor code. is the reason we're able to love our neighbor because we've realized our own belovedness and atonement. This is my point. Is this is what you wrestle with when you get together with the text. This is what you go like, well, is it this chiasm or that chiasm? And that's why I go back to what Brian said a moment ago. Right is rarely the right word, because that's not how the Bible works. It's not how literary analysis and criticism works. It's not how, if chiasms have at all God's breath in them, if they're God breathed at all, then they're dynamic, they're squishy, because they're the things that the authors were intending to do. And then there's things that maybe even God, with a wink and a nudge to the angel standing next to him, did while they put the darn thing together. Like, so you always have got to just enjoy the ride. And the fact that you're in the book of Leviticus arguing about chiasms, that is the beauty. That is just chef's kiss. So
Amen.
It's the top of the hour, Brett. I'm going to have you move that next question down below.
Ooh, okay.
Our little, because it's time to break for a moment, which was good. We just dealt with the center of our live stream. It's time for our little station identification, our little thank you. We say thank you every single live stream because it, how can I say this in a new way, Brent? Because I want to say it every time. I don't get tired of saying it. I just want to say it in a new way every time, which is that the support that people give us and the way that they support our ministry, there are so many financial supporters out there. The support is starting to climb, and we're like, is this a trend? Is it just a blip? We're like kind of like waiting it out to see if it's, because the support is increasing, which we need it to, because we're kind of behind and we're trying to build for the future, and we have all these people we want to get on the team. And so it's happening. Like, God's using, again, mostly these small gifts. And then every now and then it'll be like, hey, this person just gave $15,000, which is unbelievable and incredible. And that keeps the whole thing going. But also the thing that keeps everything going is the $15 a month, the $20 a month. And somebody just told me this stat. When people start giving at $15, $20 a month, we keep them, typically 90% of them stay for at least like 2 years, like 2.5 years at the minimum. And many go on for years beyond that at this point. And when you do the math on that, that's significant. You put enough of those people together, and that's a significant impact. So we notice that, we see that, we experience that. We exchange the emails. We get assigned thank you cards. Like, Brent will get a list of from Brian, like, write these thank you cards. He hand writes thank you cards. My wife writes thank you cards and puts stickers in them to say thank you. And it's not just a task. It's something that we get to see and engage with the encouragement that comes through because somebody was like, yeah, I'd give $15 a month to that. And that really is more meaningful than you might realize. So just thank you. Thank you to that. So, Brent, anything you would add to that before we...
I mean, perhaps the new element of saying thank you is the fact that you're saying it on Instagram this time. I don't know.
Yeah.
It might be a whole different set of people who would normally hear that message. So, the repetition is not necessarily a bad thing.
Yep. I see some questions that you threw in here right in the middle before we get back to chiasm stuff, Brent.
Yeah, somebody was asking if a question that they sent in, which I assume means sent it in through the contact form on the BEMA website, will it be covered? Because it is not chiasm related, presumably, it will not be covered today, because every question that we pulled in for this one was specifically chiasm related. Marty will be back next month to address almost everything else. And I'm sure we'll have plenty of rapid fire and other stuff. So,
yeah, and if it was sent in late January, it may still be on the list. Most of January's were already covered, but it may have also gotten divvied out to L or Reed,
true,
or something like that too. So I'd have to go back and find it. And that's not we don't deal with every single question it's possible that it won't be covered for any number of reasons, but who knows? Oh, Brent got a question, technical question for Brent. Are you streaming this with OBS? I don't even know what OBS is, Brent, but you can tell us. Or some other program. What are we using?
It's not OBS, but it is similar. It's called Ecamm. And yeah, it just allows us to stream out to multiple platforms at the same time and bring in guests and everything else. So it's pretty slick.
Yep. I see somebody is realizing.
If you could see the command center of all the windows and things that I'm looking at right now,
yeah,
it would probably blow your mind if you're not familiar with that sort of a setup.
Yeah, I can see somebody realizes, I think it's a Michaela, realizes that there is a lot of info today. Probably more info in our Chiasm edition with Brian than typical. I'm usually kind of maybe more of a feely, pastoral, field your question, talk about things. This has got a lot of info today. And she says, I'm assuming it's a Michaela, that she can rewatch the video over and over again, which is so true because they're always buried on YouTube or wherever they might be, and you can go back and watch these over and over again. We like to send little pieces out to people who ask a question that we're like, oh, that was dealt with in October, and we'll send the link to them. Anything you'd add to that, Brent?
Not necessarily, but I was just thinking about this with the last big question too, just how with chiasms in particular, lots of study, but chiasms in particular, I feel like is really rewarded by being in a room with physical stuff. Hopefully other people, but like a whiteboard where you can draw stuff out and write down notes, and maybe whether you have just a paper Bible that you're willing to mark up, or if you want to print out like a passage and highlight it, like being able to like put your hands on this stuff, I feel like is particularly rewarding with chiasms and trying to track that stuff down. So it just feels like that. It's like, yeah, this is a lot of info. This is a lot to try to get your mind around. So anything that you can do, whether that's going back over it a few different times, but just digging into it yourself in whatever way helps you find this stuff. It is a lot. It's definitely a lot.
Yeah. Somebody from Instagram says they're a new listener from Oklahoma on episodes about the prophets. They're in session 2. Really helped me find my faith again. Can't thank you enough for what you do. God bless. Yeah. Thanks a lot for that. Kind word. I love getting those notes. I was just weeding through some emails today for some newsletter stuff, and was just reminded of emails that we receive of people saying, one of the stories we're going to share next month is Jesse, who was like, man, my faith had my love for the Bible had essentially kind of been dormant since college. And this study and this podcast kind of helped reinvigorate that. And I actually got to hang out with Jesse. I didn't even realize that when I pulled up his story today. I'm like, hey, I just met him in Texas. And so it was kind of cool to see all that. But there's just a lot of people that have found these resources helpful in those ways. And that's gorgeous and beautiful. And thank you for sharing that. I hope that God keeps using it that way as much as and as long as he can.
Yeah, I just kind of threw that one in there because it's like, yeah, there's maybe you've been a listener for a long time and you're listening along in real time, getting ready to start session 10 tomorrow with us. But there's people all throughout the podcast. I mean, looking at all the comments that we've had since we started here, like we've got people in Arizona and Florida and North Carolina and Texas. Like we're all over the place. I'm sure there's some international viewers as well. This is something that brings us all together, is studying this stuff, digging into the text, wrestling together. And we're on the same journey with you. We're all in different spots, but we're all on the same path, just trying to figure out what God's doing with us. So yeah, just wanted to encourage everyone with that.
Well said.
Including
well
us.
Said. Indeed. Is Brent coming to Kokomo in April? I saw that comment come in. Brent's not coming to Kokomo. Not this time.
I don't know.
People are also asking
I thought
now
about it. We'll see.
People are also asking now if Reed's coming. Man, he co-writes a book with me, and everybody thinks he gets to come on all these trips with me. I don't know what that's all about, but unbelievable. questions.
Maybe I'll swing through, pick up Reed, and show up unannounced.
Who knows who'll
I
show
doubt
up in
it.
Kokomo.
I doubt it. Don't take that to heart.
Watch people drive for hours.
Yeah.
He's not here? All right, we're getting back at the chiasm stuff. Here comes Rebecca's question. She says, I've been studying through Genesis. This is regarding Jacob's story, okay? And with the help of Christy McClellan, I can never say this last name. I've seen it a million times. McClelland. She had a book called Rediscovering Israel. I thought I had found a chiasm. I've returned to this process a number of times. There is much to take away, but every time I come to it, I find a different answer. Now it feels like I'm trying to make something happen that isn't there, which totally understand the frustration before I even read the rest of your question, Rebecca. And at the same time, it's also the joy. This isn't about solving. Like my next book, we'll talk about the opening chapter. We're going to talk about the difference between problems and mysteries, puzzles and mysteries. We want to turn everything into a puzzle and think that there's, again, that idea of a right answer and solving it. Enjoy the journey of being like, wait, is it this or is it this? I can't even have the same idea twice. Can be frustrating. Also can be like, man, how much stuff is going on here? Enjoy it. Dance, because you solving the puzzle isn't the goal. You being in the scripture, wrestling with it, so the goal. Okay, she goes on. In her books, she points at the opposing stories of Jacob asking for blessing in deceit from his earthly father, with the one of him asking for blessing while wrestling with a man and being honest about his identity. So deception to redemption. In my initial investigation, the chiasm I found was Genesis 30:23. She conceived and bore a son and said, Hashem has taken away my disgrace. I think you might be saying the center of a chiasm, maybe. And when I found that, I wept. How sweet between deception and redemption. God is taking away our disgrace. Amazing. I thought I had a moment of Jewish study genius. Then upon checking and double checking and triple checking, each time I count a different chiasm, one regarding Laban, another one something else. It's a lot of verses to sift through, and ChatGPT, somebody else trying to use AI, seemed to only confuse me all the more. Has anyone looked into this story or found something similar? Any help appreciated. Help us, Obi-Wan, Chiasm, Ben, Brian, David, Kenobi. You are our only help. She did not put that in her question. That was my addition.
Yeah. Oh man, Rebecca, this is good work. And just the process, as Marty said, that's like, just keep working, just keep looking, keep searching, keep wrestling. That center for me is, I couldn't really find a real legit, what I would call chiasm around it, that being some kind of a center. I assume, as Marty did, that you mean 30:23 might be the system. I mean, it's beautiful if it is. Something about, taking away disgrace, or I didn't even check the word. Is the word similar to shame? Then we're potentially back doing some Genesis connections, that kind of thing. I didn't check. That would be something I would check as you're going through the process. There are some other key verses in that area that create hyperlinks for me, like God remembering Rachel.
Just in the verse prior. That's just the verse right before the one she found. Yeah.
That's like a key. That's like one of those key, okay, something's going to happen moments, like God's acting now. It does, it's not like he forgot. We hear a word like remember, and we think in the modern Western English that it's like, oh, somebody forgot something and now they remembered it. It has that word zakar in Hebrew is not about that. It's about taking action or moving forward or doing something about what was going on with whatever the situation was. So that's obviously, he remembered Noah, he remembered Abraham, he remembered lots of other people along the way in the story, right? And then one of the connections that I make, this Laban talking to Jacob about finding favor, the word hin or hanan here in Hebrew, which is going to connect both here and in the Jacob Esau story, and kind of one of my potential center themes of this section of the text. Like I said, there's also a creation theme here. We got brothers in the field, and there's actually we got fruitful and multiplying with both humans and animals in this section. So potentially, for sure, parallels, potential connections back to Genesis. And I would never say never is another thing with chiasms too, potentially. And for me, this one of my favorites is 3043 because it sounds a lot like 1216. I'll let Marty find those. 3043
Yeah.
sounds a lot like 1216 because for me, Jacob's story is going to connect to Abraham's story in the great chiasm of Genesis.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I love that. And yeah, I would just say do not, Rebecca, be discouraged by this at all. Remember that chiasms are just one way that parallelism shows up. And I know that the Bema podcast gets us all wound up about centers and buried treasure, and for good reason. Let's not ever stop that. Brian being here is just telling us that over and over again. But even when you don't find that center or a buried treasure, don't negate the beauty of those hyperlinks and those parallels and how those parallels are taught, because there's many different ways that parallelism buries treasure. There's many different ways that those themes tie together, even when it's not an inverted parallelism with a center and a treasure in that way. There will be other treasures. I heard Brian mention earlier how the parts will talk to each other. So when you see a parallelism, it might be an ABCD, ABCD instead of ABCD, DCBA. And those A's are talking to each other, and the B's are talking to each other, and the C's and the D's. And when you string it all together, you go, oh, that's a whole nother kind of a buried treasure that shows up in those parallelisms. So don't lose heart, Rebecca. You're in such a good place. It's so good. Keep going. Augusta says, hey, team. Hi, Augusta. Have you discussed chiasmus of Paul? I have. Brian has. We like to talk chiasmus of Paul. I'm stuck on Romans 7, and it just seems like there's so much there that I'm not grasping. The way it flows, I feel like it's definitely happening. If you can point me to anything, I'd really appreciate it. I'm so thankful for the work this team does. Blessings on you all. I could go off on this one, but I want to see what Brian says first, because I don't want to get caught behind a 3 goats and a mic drop. So I'm going to let Brian go first. Brian, what do you see in Romans and Romans 7?
Yeah, cool. Well, I'm interested to hear what you have to say too, because we always wrestle with Romans, don't we? So for sure, we're all down with chiasmus in Rabbi Saul, Prophet Shaul, Apostle Paul. Absolutely, I think he's a master. And should I say he and his team, because he wrote several of these letters with a team, which is a whole nother story, but that's that's part of the thing. At the same time, he's engaging these potential literary structures, be it chiasmus or something else. He's also employing his rabbinical jujitsu techniques like Gezerah Shavah or Kalva Homer, right? Because those are other ways he has of teaching. You can go Google those. We'll do another Q&A on those kinds of things maybe someday. But all that's going on with Paul. So he's definitely employing a lot of this stuff. About Romans 7 specifically, it's a super tough one, IMHO. Because the tone, the verse, he goes from like writing a normal letter to I, right? He changes kind of, it's all about, I still covet, right? So there's like a tone change there. There's a thing that changes there. But I agree with you that there's definitely some stuff going on. So I don't think it's one big chiasm here. There's kind of either an intro or an extra from the conversation he's been having in chapters 5 and 6. Okay, because again, we don't we don't look at these things in a vacuum. Like chapter 7 doesn't exist by itself. Is that fair? Okay. So if Romans 7, Prophet Shaul expounding, talking, again, audience might matter. But what I hear, he's leading towards chapter 8, which, is a kind of center in the whole letter of Romans. And it's all about new creation in Messiah, right? So this new creation thing. And he's been talking about kingdom and no longer being a slave to sin and having a new king. Okay, in chapters 5 and 6. And it comes up to chapter 7. There's still some kind of battle going on. We've seen this tension from the first creation. There's always these tensions between Tov and Ra. Okay, good and bad. Okay, it's throughout the entire theme, the story, the macro story of the text. So I think that's continuing here. That all said, I think the first 6 verses are a little parallelism. So as Marty just said, they can line up differently. So I think verse 1 lines up with verse 4, verse 2 lines up with verse 5, and verse 3 lines up with verse 6 in a little ABC kind of thing. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's moving us from whatever he's doing. Again, audience, unfortunately, we don't have Prophet Phoebe here, Pastor Phoebe here to explain it to us live like they did, right? So there's a little parallelism there. I think the next part from 7 to 12 is an actual chiasm. 9 and 10 in the middle. So, and these are how 9 and 10 in the center. Once I was alive, apart from the law, when the commandment came, sin sprang to life and I died. This goes back to chapter 5, the rule of sin and death, which goes back to Genesis chapter 3 and sin and death. Like these are all connected. Okay. I found the very commandment that was intended to bring life actually brought death. So for me, that's the center of that little chiasm. There's another little chiasm, I believe, in 13 through 22. Okay. I'm not going to go through all the lineups, but just like, for example, how I'll do a chiasm, like I'm going to read from 17 to 20. I'm going to skip the center. Okay. And just listen to what this sounds like. As it is no longer I myself who do it, but is sin living in me. Now, if I do what I do not want to do, it is no longer I who do it, but is sin living in me. Do we hear that? Those two things line up perfectly. Okay, you can't get any better than that in IMHO. Okay, so in the center of this chiasm then is that I know the good, and this is the Tov and Ra. Sorry, we're going deep. Okay. We talked last night about the whole the Noah flood chiasm and said part of the bookends of that was this idea between the Yetzer HaRa, the Yetzer of bad, and the Retzer HaTov, the Yetzer that's good. These two Yetzers that are all the way back in Genesis 6 and 8. Okay, these are things that potentially Rabbi Paul might be talking about here. The good I can't do, I do bad. We still have Tov and Ra that we're having an argument about. Okay.
Yep.
That's chiasm. And for me, there's a final chiasm at the very end that actually goes across chapters because, again, chapters weren't added to like the 15th century. That goes from 23 to verse 8-2. Okay. If I see another law, so a lot of us, I think when we read this too, we get hung up thinking he's still talking about Torah here, but there's a different law he's been talking about, which is the law of sin and death. That is not Torah. IMHO. Okay. And this goes all the way back to chapter 5. Like this pericope, this section is big. Okay.
Yep.
So I see another law work in me, waging war against the law of my mind, making me a prisoner. What a wretched man I am. Who will rescue me? Thanks be to God. This is the center, who delivers me through Jesus Messiah, our King and Lord. So then I myself, in my mind, am still a slave to God's law, but in my sinful, I'm going to talk about it, in my beastly desires, okay, I'm a slave to the law of sin and death, which is not Torah, okay? So then, therefore, there is no condemnation for those in Messiah, because through Messiah, the law of the Spirit who gives life has set you free from the law of sin and death, which goes directly back to where this whole conversation started in chapter 5. He starts about being set free from the law of sin and death back in chapter 5. Okay, so that's what I see leading up to here through chapter 7.
Yeah, that was good chapter 7 work. I've had similar thoughts and questions, Augusta, because chapter 7 it's hard to read. Like, it's just hard to read in the English. You're like, oh my gosh, it's such a tongue twister against tongue tied. It's like, how could there not be parallelisms in there? And I love the parallelism that works ABCD pointing in a direction. I'll just show you visually, Brent. I don't know if me sharing a screen is going to throw you for total chaos in all the windows you're trying to manage, but I'm going to see what happens here. I'm going to try to share my whole desktop so that I don't have to keep unsharing to share 40 million windows here. So I'm going to share the entire screen. Oh, can people see that? Yeah, they can. Okay. So here's just a layout of how this is in our session 4 podcast stuff. The last 2 episodes of Romans, verse by verse through Romans, we put these diagrams in the show notes there. So this first one over here is just like how Romans is laid out in general. You got these 3 kind of movements of an argument and then a larger application that Paul's making. Everyone has a place in God's kingdom, and therefore we're called to love. It's really kind of irrelevant to but sometimes I like to zoom out and go, how does the letter function? Now, in the next episode, we outlined the chiasm that I think I just heard Brian very similarly outline. You have what we call an inclusio, and now I'm over here on the screen, where you have the exact phrase, the obedience of faith, which actually, when you think about it, is a pretty unique phrase. That's a phrase that actually stands out. It forms the bookends. The Greek version, inclusio, it's not the same as a chiasm, but inclusio is a Greek version of a literary device that sometimes can include a chiasm, and in Romans, it's exactly what it does. So you have your inclusio brackets, your bookends, and that no condemnation passage that I think serves as a center for the book of Romans. And then when you start to build the chiasm out, on the front end, it's what the inclusio is about, the obedience of faith. Well, here's what obedience is not on the front end of the letter. No condemnation in Christ in the middle. Here's what obedience is on the back end of the letter. Let's keep building it out. If you're looking at Romans, you've got all fall short. On the back end, you have all can instruct. If you build the next layer in, all you need to do is trust. Abraham, he trusted. Romans 12, all you need to do is love. And in the midst of all of that, you have the struggle of flesh, which is what your question, Augusta, revolves around. But right on the other side of the no condemnation center, you're going to have what I put this together with a preaching team when we were in Moscow. They called it the struggle of clay, which is the potter. It's the potter and the clay, and the struggle that they have with vessels made for destruction. So that is, if it helps you to see kind of the overarching larger chiasm, that is, you can find that in the show notes of episode 154 and 155 of the Bema podcast. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. How do I need to do that? Because right now I have an infinity loop. Brent stopped it. Who knows? Stop sharing. There we go. Okay. So I love it. I think a lot of those notes, I'm always kind of big. I get overwhelmed with the details because I think I try to move too fast. And so if you're overwhelmed by that stuff like me, just know that even Marty feels that way sometimes too. So I sometimes like to see the big picture and then start to zoom in when I have a better sense of like, where does this fit in something larger? Sometimes that helps me some. So those are my notes on Romans. All right. We got another question from, I don't even know how to say this name because it's so awesome. Does it say where they're from? The name is Gayton. It's got to be Gayton. And I'm not even going to attempt the last name. I don't share last names anyway. The name is fantastic. I love the name. It might be a Dutch name. They're from, at some point, they were from Grand Rapids in Michigan. So the chance that it's a van name. I grew up in Dutch country. All my friends were Dutch. I went to a Dutch Reformed church. Definitely Dutch. Checks out. Okay. But Gayton, never heard that name. That is fantastic. Okay, enough about your name. Sorry. For all of us trying to protect anonymity, Gayton is not helping us protect your anonymity. So if anybody is from Michigan and knows a Gayton who listens to the Bema podcast, your cover is blown. Okay. First of all, thank you. Has some notes in there about people that Gayton knows and was around and listens to. I love that little note. Thank you very much. I'm just finishing session 1, has a question. I was counting, and I think I may have found something in Deuteronomy. Remember is used 14 times. I think it's the same word, Brian, you were referencing before about remember, which stands out to me as 2 sets of 7. There are 7 usages in the first 9 chapters. There's 7 more in the last 9 chapters. Stop it. With a 5-chapter gap in the middle. After some of your early episodes, especially, I was starting to look for that symmetry, thinking there might be a chiasm, and the structure of the last 9 chapters does seem to mirror the structure of the first 9 chapters as well. This would leave chapter 12, give or take, as the center. Chapter 12 is all about worshiping God. Is there something to this? Is the structure of Deuteronomy meant to show that our treatment, especially of the foreigner, orphan, and widow, is the proper worship of God? Oh, baby. Brian, what do you see?
Well, first off, whether there's a chiasm or not, that's a beautiful thought about what Deuteronomy might be about.
Absolutely.
For sure. Yeah, like that's might be what the entire, a lot of the entire text is about, right? So yeah, kudos for that, and kudos for seeing the numbers and the 7s and all that. I don't have a chiasm there. Doesn't mean it's not there. Of course, there's a lot going on. This is, if you may or may not be familiar with the idea of Deuteronomy being a form of what was known as a suzerain vassal type covenant agreement that's God making with the people at the time. That this was kind of there's the idea of the covenant, and it's laid out like a covenant document throughout. And some folks have put made Deuteronomy 12 through 26 potential section, potentially not chiastic in it that I know of, but it's about the stipulations. It's about one of the standard ways of creating a suzerain vassal covenant. There would be these stipulations of, do this, don't do that. Can't you read the signs? Wait, that's another song.
I was singing it in my head as soon as you said it.
Yeah. Right. So there's been that out there. That's a little interesting to me, because that would put, the prophet like Moses and the coming king in chapters 17 and 18 kind of in the center. So that might have something to say for it. I do think chapter 12 itself might be chiastic. There may be a chiasm in chapter 12. I'm going to share, if that's okay again.
Boy, the chapter 17, 18 center could be a real, that feels like a real Deuteronomist.
Did I get this right? Do you guys getting this?
We'll see if Brent throws it up there. We're not.
I have nothing to throw up yet.
Oh, there we go. I forgot to hit the share button. Now we got it.
Boom, got it.
You're on.
It's there now. So yeah, so it's this one right here that I'm looking at, and I'm not detailing all the verses, but you can do that work yourself for a little practice. But you can see that there's some bookends. Do the commands, careful to follow laws. Don't worship Yah their way, which would be the Canaanite way at this point, because that's where they're headed. There's going to be a place for Yah's name. You can see that in red on both sides. Where to eat or party in red on both sides. Be careful, that keep, Samar again, is on both sides.
It's so similar
And
to the Leviticus one you showed us. It's so
yeah,
similar.
yeah. And in this one, there's the center for this one, which goes again back to Noah, right?
Yeah.
Is
Yep.
don't eat blood. Yeah. Okay. And there's a little, what do you call it? A pregnant little reminder about blood down in the bottom half. But yeah, so there's a potential chiasm in 12 itself, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's very good. I like, man, I do like how you depict those two with the colors, and even in that paragraph form makes it really helpful to see it that way. It's very good. Helpful for people to see how you take notes and stuff like that too. So very
That's
good.
how I do it.
All right, here's the real question before I move on to the next one though. Brian, I realized a couple older guys like you and me, when you said, didn't you see the sign? And you said, wait, that's a song. I have a feeling that many of our listeners might be thinking we're referring to Ace of Base. And you were not referring to Ace of Base.
No.
We were referring to a much older. Okay, just want to make sure that I wasn't the total idiot and on the same. I was
clogging up the scenery, breaking my mind.
Yeah. Oh, I used to listen to that song riding around with my dad. Oh gosh. Oh.
Yeah, because I'm like, probably, I'm not, I'm a similar age to
you guys gotta help me out here. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah. I can't remember who it's by.
Everywhere a sign, clogging up the blah blah blah. Do this, don't do that. Don't you read the sign? It's a pretty great old song, Brent. It's a great one. Gotta check it out.
You're making me do the lyrics search here.
It's by the 5-man electrical band in 1971. Yeah.
Bam. It's in the comments. Band. Somebody's all over it. Artsy Bible nerd is apparently not just a Bible nerd. Whoever they are is also a musical.
And see, we wouldn't even have that if we didn't have the Instagram viewers.
We wouldn't.
So
we wouldn't.
Cool. Already paying dividends. Okay.
All right. We're coming down the stretch here. We got a few questions left. Rob says this about Proverbs 4. Proverbs 4, 18 through 19 is a pretty good chiasm. I like the confidence, Rob, in that. It is a pretty good chiasm. Thoughts, question mark. And I got to meet Rob when we were in Austin, and that was excellent. I signed his book. He said, thanks. You're welcome, Rob. Brian, what do you see here in Proverbs 4, 18 to 19?
Yes, absolutely. Great job, Rob. Proverbs 4, 18, 19 is a very good parallelism. Oh, wait. You said chiasm. Oh, yeah. I think it's more of a classic Proverbs parallelism, which often goes what we call verse to verse in Proverbs, that will either say something almost the same meaning a different way, or it'll say something with like the opposite connected to it, which is a classic proverbial way of comparing things and having its, readers and hearers listen to things. So I wouldn't make those two verses themselves a chiasm, but hallelujah, they are part of a chiasm. So, and I did draw this one out, so I'll share one more time.
I saw it on your document. I was peeking down there last time you shared it. I'm like, there's that Proverbs 4 chiasm.
Something happened. It's not giving me the share up window. Let me try again. Share screen. Yeah, I broke it.
He broke it. Brian broke it. Here.
Software update notification. All right, I guess I'm not going to share. That's weird.
Can you
So
copy and paste it into our Google Doc and I'll share it?
yeah.
Because I love seeing it. Seeing chiasms is so much better. I'll even try to like make a big space so we don't have to share anybody's secret information. Yeah.
Yeah, it's in there.
Boom. Okay, I'm gonna share my screen. I haven't broke it yet. Window. Share. Here we go. We got it. I'm gonna see if I can. Be nice if I could zoom in. Don't you worry, I got it. I know what I'm doing. I've used
Look at
somebody
that.
else. Oh,
Look at that.
there we go. Okay, there you go.
Yeah, so you can check these words in the Hebrew, but you'll see that the top section in blue, path of righteousness, that's where it's comparing the path of righteousness in your verses to the way of the wicked in 18 and 19. But down at the bottom, keep straight the path of your feet, turn your feet away from evil. The word for wickedness is rasha. The word for evil is ra. You can just see how those things kind of match up there. And then in the red, we have be attentive to my words, my sayings, keep them in your sight, and then put away crooked speech, devious talk, and let your gaze be straight, right? So you see how those things might line up. And then you have a little ba-boom, ba-boom. So I got green, black in the middle. Keep them within your heart. Keep your heart. They are life to those. From it flows springs of life. So hopefully you can see how that all fits together in a nice center. Again, about life, which is, a common and one of the best themes of all the text. So that would fits all. What's the word? I don't know. Fits all my criteria pretty much for being a classic.
Yeah, that's pretty great. And what are the chances that word "keep" is the shamar word?
Oh, it is for sure. I looked at that one.
Gosh, so good.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
All right.
And
well, beautiful, Rob. I love it. Anything else you see there, Brian?
No, that was it.
Okay. There's Brent for a brief moment. I love stopping to share my screen and getting to see Brent for just the briefest of moments. All right, Alex has got a question in here. I think I found a chiasm in Exodus that I haven't fully fleshed out yet, but I think finding the center is clear, but the meaning of the center is still unclear for me. It's always hard to express like how somebody is identifying a chiasm. I think, Brian, you've tried to map this out. There are A's. The A level would be the east and west winds blowing. Red Sea east wind. The B's would be the plagues of darkness and people not being able to see. And the pillar of fire putting fire between the Egyptians. The C level would be the Passover and the Feast of Unleavened Bread matched together. The D levels would be the center, almost in the center, is the death of the firstborn and the Egyptians giving all their jewelry to the Israelites, paired with the consecration of the firstborn, giving them up to God in dedication. Okay. Then the E level would be the middle is the institution of the Passover, but specifically on either side, there is who can't eat it and who has to. A lot about foreigners and how they can come and be able to eat it. But in the very middle is an instruction about eating it in one home, not taking the flesh outside the home, and not breaking any bones. I thought maybe it was about unity or wholeness, but the best I could come up with was that the words one flesh and bone remind me of the marriage. Oh, cool. The marriage of Adam and Eve. I like that. Okay. What'd you see in all this, Brian? What kind of notes do you got?
So I think it's great work. And I think what you just said at the end is, hyperlinking to something like one flesh and bone or something like that. For me, there's more of that kind of stuff there than a larger chiasm in this whole section that Alex is talking about here. The chapter 12 itself, again, I do have multiple chiasms. um, so I have, let's see, I have 3, I think. I'm not going to go through them, but I'm 1 through 28, 29 through 33, and 34 through 39. So one of the things that I always want to keep thinking about or reminding myself is to continue as I engage in any of this kind of work is what's the message?
Sure.
Okay. And if there's chiasms in those places that I've seen them, like here in 12, for instance, if I'm getting anywhere near what might be there, I have centers that say, don't forget, right? Or remember how I rescued you, right? Is one center. Another center is Pharaoh actually letting the people go, which connects back to what Yah said was going to happen. And the third center is a third of the center is the Egyptian people giving them stuff and possibly some even going with them, which God also said at the beginning, because the whole thing from 4 to 14 might be chiastic, right? And this is always to be a party remembrance for everyone. So there's some centers in there that have meaning that seem to make sense with the flow of the text and what Exodus is, what the
Sure.
Passover might be about. Okay. And that all fits into an understanding of this episode that lines up for me with the Know Yah theme. The major players in the cast,
Yes.
right, are
Yes.
being involved with, like, this whole story is for the Israelites to get to know Yada, experience Yah. The Egyptians know Yada, experience Yah. There's multiple verses that, and for Pharaoh to know Yada, experience Yah. That's this whole theme connects all those things. And by the way, that the world may know into life, theme of author John of a gospel later, who is, of course, riffing off Torah throughout his gospel. So that would all make sense for this idea of to know Yah is life. And that's what God is doing. He's taking them from death to life, from slavery to freedom, from all those kinds of things as they get to know him. And this Passover is part of that package.
Sure. Add on to that the first, we love the principle of first mention. And the first mention of to know is going to be Adam and Eve, the very bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh, oneness that possibly could be getting hyperlinked there. They're setting up a wedding at Sinai. All of that is absolutely beautiful. I love that. I do love that. And I also love, Brian, your point. We often, when we learn this literary device of chiasms, we often, this is why it's good to just know our text, to just always be studying our text, always be growing in familiarity with our text. Because when we start doing chiasm work, we like see it in a vacuum. We're like trying to dissect it like a Western thinker in a vacuum to figure out like what the center is, kind of void of all this other connection. I think because our Western mind doesn't want it to be tainted by a bias, or like we want to put it in a little literary petri dish and like find the chiastic center, when instead you want it to be in conversation with the rest of the book. Like, what is Exodus trying to communicate? What is the story trying to tell us? Apart from chiasms, because then when I find the chiasms, it should add layers or depth. It should be directly in conversation to what's being said. And then it might help me shape what's going on in Exodus or whatever those things might be. But those things ought to be in conversation. I think our Western mind tries to isolate it and see it in a vacuum. But as much as you're able, grow in your familiarity with the text for the rest of your days, as long as God puts you here on this earth, so that those two things can always be in conversation with each other. What the larger text is saying and what the chiasm that you might be stumbling upon could be adding to that conversation. I have one more question. We have 10 and a half minutes. I could not have timed it better. Chandler says, hello and God bless. Chandler, hello, shalom, and right back at you. So thankful for your all's workman attitude, and especially love the figure of speech chiasm you often point out. My chiasm is regarding episode 2, knowing when to say enough. It's pointed out that nakedness is the prevalent issue, and it was said that in the middle statement of the chiasm is the eyes of both of them were opened, and they realized they were naked, which is Genesis 3:7. My question is, how is the center of this chiasm determined? I know in episode 1 it was using different word counts, but could you clarify how this was determined? What was it, word counts, verse counts, or something else? Again, thank you for your labor and love and work of believing. Yeah, it's a great question, Chandler. And again, we were episode 2 of our journey. So we were like trying to continue to drip chiasm. And really, the Genesis chiasms at the beginning are not the easiest chiasms. They're not the cleanest chiasms. They're not the place to, they're kind of an awkward place to learn the principle. And yet we were like, what do you do? So we tried to drip some of that. There's everything, and you've seen that. This question ended up being last on our live stream tonight. You see the myriad of ways that you dance with chiasm, from concept to word usage to word count. Like if you kept listening, Chandler, it's a few episodes later and you bump into a chiasm that consists of the consonants and the order in which they show up in the Tower of Babel story. It's crazy. It's hard for my mind to even like get around that. So it can be a whole, anything that can show or add that repetition, that rhythm, that mirror, and it could be a whole host of stuff. In this case, it appears that in this larger story, you've got a setup and then you've got a portion of the story that wants to tell me something about what's going on in the larger story, and that portion of the story is chiastic. But I haven't even read Brian's notes yet. So, Brian, what do you see in all of this?
Well, first of all, I think maybe I misremember, but the word count thing was more about chapter 1, I think, of Genesis.
Very much so. Yep.
Yeah. So in this one, this is beautiful, Chan. I love this. Tov Meod wrestling. There's so much going on here, and sorry, my throat's starting to bug me, but I'm going to give you hopefully some insights and a tool potentially that we can look at here. But this one for me, and I'm just going to read what I wrote because this will be time dependent. Marty said we have 8 minutes or so.
Yep.
And I'll start with the 1 glass response because I measure time in either time or glasses of wine typically.
Nice.
So this is a potential 1 glass response, but it's really a 2 bottle question. Okay.
I like that.
So yeah. So, and I don't want to use the word disagree. I've never disagreed with anybody. But I would wrestle with Rabs over a glass or 3 on verse 7 being the center of this chiasm, which is, I think, what they have in the podcast. And here's why. And I'm going to try and show you why. So I'm going to try and share my screen again, if that's okay. Share screen, window, this one, share. Oh, it's working. Hallelujah. Is it working? Can y'all see this?
Yep, we got it.
So this is one of the tools I use called Step Bible. Okay. So we're looking at Gen 3 here. And what's cool about this is it will look at the Hebrew behind the English and show you words that match up. Okay. So if I start here and they were naked, okay, it's the word arom, and you're going to see it shows up 3 times, but just kind of remember where it shows up. So we're going to see naked, okay, and then we're going to see they heard, and that shows up 2 times, right? And then we're going to see the sound, which is Kol, voice of the Lord. That shows up 2 times. And then we're going to see garden. They say orchard in this version, but it's gan. It's just like Eden, right? And that's going to show up 3 times, but you'll see where it is. And you're going to see they hid. And that shows up 2 times. Okay? So you have this naked, heard, sound, garden, hid, and heard, sound, garden, naked, hid, all on both sides of the actual center, which is verse 9, God saying, "Where are you?" Okay? Again, according to Brian's heretical universe of better chiasms.
Heretical. I like
Yeah,
that.
heretical. Yeah.
Nice.
The sinners, where are you? Which is the question, because it's not location, right? I think Marty even talked about this in the podcast. It's not the location, where are you? It's why aren't you here with me? What's going on with you? Where? It's the significant being of where are you? Because they're naked and hiding now, and they should be not naked and hiding, or
Sure.
hiding it, right? For whatever reason.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So for me, that falls out as a clean center for this chiasm that starts, up with, where it, for me, there's a chiasm that even starts, because the initial conversation 1, 2, and 3 here is between the snake and the woman. And if we jump down to 14, 15, 16, it's God and the snake and the woman. And then we have the serpent saying to the woman, and then God talking to the woman, the serpent talking to the woman in 4 and 5, God talking to the woman in 13. The woman saw the fruit of the tree was good, she gave in 6, and the woman put here, she gave in 12. 7 and 8 line up with 10 and 11, and 9 is perfectly in the center for me. Where are you? Okay. Thoughts?
I like it. I have often, and I don't just, this feels like such a cop out. So I'm going to acknowledge that up front. I often wonder how often it's not an either or, but there are multiple layers, especially, and I know Elle's not here to defend herself. If you're a documentary hypothesis guy, like you can have redactors having conversations with each other where multiple chiasms are happening in the same passage. So call it a fire, call it a 2-bottle conversation. But honestly, you bring out glasses and 2 bottles to a fire, and we're going to have and the Bible, we're going to have a fantastic evening.
Yeah.
Because my chiasm is dependent on the conversation it's having with the first half of the story, which is, what is the relationship between mankind and beastliness? Your chiasm is very much like the relationship between God and man in this story we call the fall. I wonder if there's almost, because if you extend your step Bible out and you look at nakedness, it shows up on both sides. It shows up at the very end of chapter 3, and it shows up at the end of chapter 2, right after the beast, the naming of the beasts and a suitable helper. So a conversation about nakedness potentially is bookended, directly connected to the conversation about beastliness.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a nakedness conversation with a center, which easily does not undo. It's not an either or, because, okay, now let's step back and have the conversation again. There's like multiple things happening in the story. Like, let's talk about what it means to be human, but let's talk about our relationship with God. And there's 2 different conversations and 2 different literary devices layered on top of each other, which again feels like a cop out. I want to be careful of all of that, but especially if we have multiple versions of a story being redacted into what becomes our inspired text, I that does not seem implausible or unlikely to me at all. Because I love everything you just showed in that chiasm. A, with all the details of how it lines up with 9 being a very clean center. And B, that whole conversation about where are you, which Foreman goes on to show just keeps showing up in Torah over and over and over again throughout Torah. So I for me, it's just like, yes, both and, like, right? I can hold the text this way and do this, or I can come over here and hold the text this way and do that. Neither one of them argue with each other. They're not contradictions. They're just two different ways of framing up the story to get something beautiful out of them. So I love it. I love it.
Cool. Hey, if you want to take one more minute, then it won't let me share again for some reason. If you share, I already have something that addresses exactly what you just said in our document. If you can share.
I will put it right where don't you worry, everybody. I'm just making space so that you can't see anything secret, because that would be naughty. We don't want to share anybody's personal information. We want to share a window, and we want to share that window. Ka-chow. This is what you want me to share right here?
Nope.
Uh-oh. Which one do you want me to share?
There it is. Now you're there.
Right there.
You can go to that. Yeah. Zoom in on that.
Okay.
It's right where the "where are you" in green is.
There you go.
Yeah. So I'm working on this at the moment, but there's an inclusio, a larger inclusio, I think, for me, that is God putting man into the garden and then God removing man from the garden. That hinges around that keep Samar again, right? And there are two chiasms within that, at least, potentially. One is chapter 2, but it's about instruction. There's an instruction to the human. The only instruction in chapter 2 is the back end of another inclusio that is the instruction to the human in chapter 3.
Right.
After we talk to the snake and the woman, okay? And you've got the other naked, the other Adam naming the woman. Convo, are you snake, woman, God, woman gave. Where are you? Naked, woman, God, convo, God, snake, woman. Instruction to human. Human names the woman again. Human sent out of the garden, and someone else is going to have to keep it now.
Yep.
Okay. So, which I think addresses what you were just talking about in some way, shape, or form.
Yes.
And this is all part of, again, instead of chapters and verses, the text gives us toldots, or generations. This is generations, heavens and earth.
Yes.
Okay, which starts in verse 4, okay, of chapter 2. Okay.
Yep.
So I think there's something here that is engaging all this, that is, for me, building on the two big problems here, is the man did not get very much instruction.
Yep.
The problems are instruction and presence for me. Okay. Because very little instruction, be fruitful, multiply, and you can eat of all the trees, but that one, that's it. And where was God when they actually ate?
Yeah, right.
He wasn't there in some way, shape, or form.
Yep.
Because then he comes walking in and says, where are you? So the problems are not enough instruction and not enough presence.
Yeah.
Okay. Which the text is going to then move all the way through the whole next scroll.
Oh
Exodus,
gosh. Oh gosh. Yeah, absolutely.
Is about instruction and presence.
Yep. Bingo.
Okay.
Tabernacle.
Amen.
Tabernacle,
John's
holiness
whole
code, the whole thing.
is about the word is life, instruction, and then the Holy Spirit showing up, presence, right?
Yep.
Like in the beginning was Word, Jesus' life. Like
Yep.
this for me is why this potential literary structure feeds
Yes.
into
Yep.
what's God going to do? Give them more instruction and more presence. Like, what
Yep.
do you need to flourish and be fruitful and multiply?
Yep. Yeah, totally. And what does John play with all the time? But the Genesis parallel. And I've become more and more convinced he's playing with tabernacle imagery,
Exodus.
tabernacle and
Oh, yeah,
priesthood.
absolutely.
So I think that just lines up perfectly.
Amen.
That's beautiful. Okay.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to stop sharing that. Brian, you have any closing thoughts that I almost tried to share with the world?
Oh, those thoughts will be whether you want to share them or not, Ryan. At this point, they're shared with the world. They will be in the archive.
Yeah, it's all good. Just I made a little thing on here. We had 13 questions on here, and the middle one, right, was about the whole love thing. We looked at 13 possible chiastic literary scenes. Right in the middle was the discussion around the center of Torah being love. Can't make this stuff up. Chiasms abound. Maybe those other prominent theologians named John and Paul knew what they were talking about. All you need is love.
And much like the Genesis 1 chiasm, where you have to do a little bit of that part doesn't fit the normal pattern, we got to take that out. You got to take out all those extra questions that I added in to make
it's all good.
Brian David's chiasm of chiasm questions work.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we've got some closing items here. Remember, our next Q&A is Wednesday, March 11th at our normal evening time, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. We did get a question from, I think I saw it at least once, maybe twice or thrice. Is there any way that you share your chiasm document?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Look at you. Unbelievable. I could see that going multiple ways. And Brian said, absolutely. I know you've shared it on Slack, I believe. I believe you've shared like a master collaborator doc or something like that.
Yeah. Like I have, we shared the John document before. I was going to ask you, Brent, about that. If I've updated some stuff on that, does that need to be refreshed, or do we need to do something with that? But I can share this document or the chiasms from this document, no problem. Brent can, I don't know if there's a way to link it someplace or put it somewhere on the website or whatever. I have no problem sharing it. I don't know the methodology behind it.
Yeah, it looks like the one we put in your episode is a PDF. We locked that one in time, but we could do something. Yeah, I'd probably Slack is the best way for people to find you if they're on the BEMA Slack.
Sure.
Yep. That'd be the easiest way to do it, and keep it in a little bit slightly contained space rather than out in the total internet ether.
I don't know if Michaela's on Slack, but if you're not Michaela, use the contact form on the BEMA website, and we'll make the connection happen.
And then it looks like Karen posted a comment. We'll close with this. Thanks for all you do. My dad, age 85 years old, and my son, 21, and I... Karen, you didn't put your age in there. Come on now.
It's got to be somewhere in the middle, though.
It's got to be somewhere in the middle. A chiasm, if you will. I listen to you in California and discuss 2 or 3 episodes each week. We have listened so much. We are almost done with season 3. Awesome. Karen, we love it. I love that an 85-year-old and a 21-year-old would talk with their daughter and mom about the podcast. That is the greatest.
Yeah.
Literally the greatest. All right, Brent, I'm done. You should get us out of here.
All right. That's it. We'll see y'all in exactly 28 days, because that's the magic of February. So good night, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.